embracing my inner Kyle because I just got off of a walk. Hey guys, T.M.H, and I'm doing something a little different. I've always wanted to do a worst to best when it came to one of, if not my favorite band of all time, Gorillaz. Gorillaz has been a big influence on me throughout my entire life, ever since I was a little kid. They infected my taste in music, how I love music, and how I appreciate music. They inspired me when it came to art, because everything I draw, everything I sketch is very, very Jamie Hewitt inspired. So of course, if I'm going to make a worst to best, in my eyes, I feel like it's really perfect to do Gorillaz, because I feel like with how long I've been a Gorillaz fan, it just makes sense to me. Let's start some rules before I start. Of course, number one, this is just my opinion. Don't treat it as if it's the gospel or anything. If you have your own worst to best when it comes to this band, leave it in the comments below. And secondly, I am not including compilation records, EPs, or mixtapes, which means stuff like this or stuff like this will not count in this list. So with that being said, let's get into it. Number 6 was real easy for me, and I feel like it's only because everyone just kind of came to accept that number 6 is, of course, The Fall. The Fall is practically the Gorillaz record that isn't really an official Gorillaz record. A little background with this album: this is pretty much a free album for the fan club that was released as the 4th studio record by the band themselves. Of course, the only reason why people say it is the worst is because it sounds so much like a demo record. When you listen to the Gorillaz, you expect the creative, adventurous sound that a lot of people love when it's not just the fictional members to it. With this record though, that's kind of lacking. This was made on an iPad for a month with Damon on tour, and just pretty much just messing around with the iPad and the apps on it and just seeing what he can put on as an official song. And of course that's not bad, and if I'm gonna be honest with you, this album isn't even bad at all. Anything its worst crime is it's just not that creative, and it's not really an album that you need to listen to. You can easily skip over this, and that's a shame, because when it comes to the Gorillaz, you really should listen to all the amazing stuff that this band has to give. However, if I am going to give you songs that you should listen to, honestly, Revolving Doors isn't hands down one of the songs that you really should listen to. Probably one of, if not the best on the record. Some of my favorites off of it is Hillbilly Man, Detroit, Bobby and Phoenix, California and the Slipping of the Sun, and of course, Fauna to Arizona. Yeah, the reason why The Fall is the weakest is only because it's just there. So number 5 on the list was again an easy pick, and that is Gorillaz' Humanz. This is the first record that they released in 7 years, and of course there was a lot to really look forward to on this album. This has been anticipated for years now, ever since the band got off of hiatus, and then started to tease up art for Phase 4. And of course, this album, again, like the last album, is not a bad record at all. There's a lot of great stuff on this record. Like, all the songs on here are easily still as creative as you would expect, especially after the band hasn't done anything for a good solid 5 years at least. There's a lot of great features on this too. Some features that are just really shining on this record, like Vince Staples or Grace Jones, Anthony Hamilton. There's a lot of great features on this thing. So why is it number 5? Well, to first start, the obvious problem, the Gorillaz kind of lack in it. There's just barely any Gorillaz. 2D only takes lead vocals on 4 tracks out of 20. And that is a really bad sign, because people don't go to Gorillaz for featured artists, they go to hear Gorillaz. And that is a flaw when it comes to an album like this. Some of the songs on here are probably some of the Gorillaz' least interesting songs to date, like Sex Murder Party. I'm sorry, that song just sucks. Even the features on here, some of them just don't match at all, like Danny Brown on Submission or Dram on Andromeda. When it comes to Danny Brown on Submission, it's just a feature that just does not match about what the song is representing. Or when it comes to Dram, some of the features just feel unnecessary. With stuff like that, it does kind of make the album a little dreadful. But again, there's still a lot of great stuff on here. Again, it's not a bad record. So number 4 on this pick is the Now Now. Now Now is probably the Gorillaz' most chill record. It is a funkadelic new wave synth pop record, that making it their shortest record to date, I believe. Only at 11 tracks and released a whole year after Humanz. Everything I said about the problems with Humanz is not on here. Damon stated that he knew the problems with Humanz and he just doesn't want to repeat them on here, making it a short 2D-esque record. This is pretty much 2D all the time. So if you were complaining about how absent 2D was on Humanz, you will not complain on here. And the sound is just so straightforward. This isn't the band trying to be creative or adventurous like they did with other albums. It's something chill. If I'm gonna be honest with you, this is pretty much a summer record. This is something that I can only listen to in the summer when I'm on the beach listening to something like Sulk Eye, Magic City, Melody, Trance, Hollywood, Kansas. Like, this is pretty much a summer record in my eyes. Nothing really bad. Even the features on here that are on here, like George Benson, like great guitar work, and of course, Jamie and Snoop Dogg on Hollywood are really damn solid features. It doesn't like take away the feel of the Gorillaz being the primary artist. So again, everything that you had a problem with on Humanz isn't on here. It is one hell of a listen to. It is short and it's simple, but at the same time, that doesn't make the album bad at all. So number 3 was the hardest pick because this is where we get to the Gorillaz at their best. Pretty much anything from here on out is an absolute listen. You need to listen to it. But what makes it hard is that I can't make it a 3-way tie. What is the weakest out of them? And sadly, I guess I had to go with the self-titled. Self-titled is absolutely amazing. What makes this album amazing is just how fucking weird it is. When you listen to songs like Clint Eastwood or Rock the House, like the singles off of this thing, good God, a good chunk of the singles do not sound like something you were going to hear off of this record. This album is weird and experimental. Probably the band's most experimental record to date. It's just an album that genre blends with stuff that you don't see the Gorillaz doing nowadays. When it comes to something like dub or Latin music, this is probably has some of the Gorillaz' most punkiest, most rock, and honestly, most weird and experimental. And I guess that's one reason why I love it so much, because ever since I was a little kid and listening to this record, it just spoke to me. I just absolutely love the sound. It's so weird and so cartoony that, yeah, of course it was going to be a great solid debut record from an animated band. It made sense. But something like this, it's 2000s to the core. This is a really great album for like nostalgia. I've been listening to this album for like at least 15 years now. And of course, while it does sound dated, like good God, yeah, a good chunk of this album does sound dated, but it's only because it just feels so 2000s. It has some of the Gorillaz' best songs off of this thing, and it's so sad. A lot of people, when it comes to it, don't realize how truly sad this album is. When you listen to songs like Slow Country, Soundcheck, even 5-4, this album is fucking miserable. But at the same time, I guess the music's just so weird and experimental that it kind of distracts you from the lyrics. Even 2D's vocals are experimental on this thing. Listen to this record. Listen to it. Just full-blown listen to it. It might be only at number 3, but I promise you, listen to it. On to number 2, and this is where, again, it gets so hard to rank these 3 records, but I think in number 2, I had to go with Plastic Beach. Plastic Beach was the album that kind of said that the Gorillaz were going into a more poppy sound. At least at the time, had more of a synth pop sound to it, especially with songs like Broken, On Melancholy Hill, Rhinestone Eyes. There's a lot of synth pop on this record. This is probably one of the Gorillaz' most conceptual records to date. Like, this thing is an environmental message, the album, but it doesn't hammer it down into your throat, mainly because the music's just so damn good and it doesn't always have to rely on just get your shit together and save the ocean. Concept of this album was based off of all the plastic that you would find in the ocean, and it's all piling up into one plastic beach. Honestly, what made me want to put this album at number 2 was just because, God damn, this album's creative. It's amazing. It's amazing. I cannot find a single song that I absolutely hated. It's just not as weird or experimental as the last record, which makes this album a little more digestible for newer listens, especially when it comes to a band like Gorillaz that really do love to genre blend and to experiment with what they can and can't do, even when it comes to the virtual band story. This is an album that you should listen to if you're really full-blown starting out with the Gorillaz. That and this album just has some of the Gorillaz' best work to date. I absolutely love songs like On Melancholy Hill, Stylo, Empire Ants, To Binge, and the features on this album are just so mind-blowing. You have The Clash, you have Little Dragon, Snoop Dogg, Bobby Womack on this record. Like, the features list is just so 100% amazing. No collaborator disappointed on this thing. They bring in the oomph that made the Gorillaz want to put them on here. This is an album that is a perfect presentation of what they can pull on this, and why Humanz was just such a train wreck when it came to the collaborators on it. Like the self-titled, listen to this record, please. Yeah, we all knew this one was going to be number one. In a time where the Gorillaz were seen as a one-time thing, where a lot of people were judging the Gorillaz just being like, this is a one-time thing, this isn't going to be an entire full-blown band career. And then this album was a punch in the dick to anyone who said that. This album is just pretty much the band growing up, and I believe is their most conceptual album to date. This was all about war, all about peace, and all about just living. The album starts off with a sample from Dawn of the Dead and ends with a song that's just one of the best album closers you will ever hear, period. And with an album talking about war, like songs like Dirty Harry and Old Green World and Kids with Guns, and how negative and how realistic the songs really do feel. It ends with Demon Days, where it's just talking about, hey, listen, we're all gonna be okay. It's one of those records that once you listen to it all blends together naturally. This is where a lot of people know Gorillaz songs. This is the album that has Feel Good Inc., Dare, and this has Gorillaz' most creative songs on it, like Every Planet We Reach Is Dead. Oh, watching it live with Ike Turner is a must listen. You have to watch it. It's absolutely great. It's a little cliche to say that Demon Days is the best record that the Gorillaz have ever released. Fuck yeah, it is. But at the same time, it's a cliche for a reason. I don't see anything wrong with this record. It's just a must listen from first to last. Every song on here hits with a message. Every song on here sounds musically great, and it goes fantastic with what this album's trying to say message-wise, but with the virtual band story as well. I absolutely love this record, and if I'm gonna be honest with you, it's at least at the top 5 of my favorite albums of all time. So that was my worst to best of the Gorillaz' albums. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.